TPCSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app.
From the ECSI Sports Studios and the #1 sports investors in America, we bring you the closing bell. As the market closes, legends Jeff Dawson and Riley Magnuson bring you all the sports investing tips for tonight's matchups. If you want to learn more from the two legends at the desk, make sure you stay tuned to the closing bell.
Good evening, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the co-host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and it is that time of the day and evening or late afternoon for the closing bell with myself and Riley Magnuson. December 2nd, 2024. Last time we talked, it was November. For some of you that just come in and tune in on the closing bell, it's now December. We turn the page. One more week of college football, the conference championships, and then the fun begins. There'll be 12 people in the big dance, and then there'll be 13, 14, 15, 16, 18, 20, the woulda, coulda, shouldas, and a potential 3-loss Alabama team, Ole Miss team. Why aren't I in? What? So let the drama begin. First and foremost, of course, a shout out to our proud sponsors and partnerships. It's WagerWire. Head on over to Google Play, download that app. It is free. Viva Tequila Seltzer, 2 new flavors. Well, one kind of new. The East Coast is cuckoo for coconut, and last week, the new flavor lemon. CT Bets Austin, that team is awesome. Go try one where you purchase your adult beverages. And Terry Smith, Atlanta Steaks and Seafood, came on bravely after Bill Krakenberg this morning. He had to deal with an 8 OT game where his Georgia Bulldogs snuck through against Georgia Tech, who will be at BC next year, with SMU, with Clemson, with Notre Dame. So we'll have a big schedule at home for BC next year, of course. And then his Atlanta Falcons took one on the chin there. It's time for Penix Jr., number 1. Number 2, Kirk Cousins will be traded to a new coach who wants a veteran quarterback for next year to help the quarterback that they draft. So without further ado, and first and foremost, if you missed Cornflakes and Crack this morning, shame on you, but of course life happens. Head on over to YouTube at East Coast Sports Investors. We got 2,400 shows right there. Of course, the show with Bill and Terry is there. So without further ado, all smiles at Lambeau Field, the one and only Mr. Riley Magnuson. What's up, champ?
What is up, my friend? Happy Monday, getting things started back for a new week. You are right, all smiles in frozen tundra land. The cold reared its ugly head on one team, and it wasn't mine. But we talked about it. The conditions weren't going to be frozen. It's Wisconsin in late November, but it wasn't the full frozen tundra experience. And I saw a clip today of the difference between the Packers warming up in pregame. Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, and tank top, no sleeves. Shorts, looking like they're living it up on a nice California day. And the Dolphins come out in long sleeves and hoodies and are barely moving around. So it doesn't always mean anything, but sometimes it can. And obviously the Packers have had some home field advantages the last few years in late December or more importantly, the playoffs against some warm weather teams that haven't gone well. So it doesn't always go that way, but Packerland is feeling good, and obviously the NFC North is a lot of storylines, whether it be what we just saw or obviously Packers and Lions on Thursday, a big game that can kind of shape the rest of the season depending on how that one goes. So it's a great day to be talking some NFC North and obviously the NFL as a whole.
Life isn't a bowl of cherries, okay? So you have to adapt to the situations. And when you come in with a loser's mentality, I got so sick and tired of 2-0-8 when the temperature's under 40 degrees, blah, blah, blah. Frozen tundra and winter conditions is what I watched for a half last night.
Yeah.
When San Francisco, the most decimated team in injuries. Lions are catching up, though. We'll get to that in a minute. But this team, where McCaffrey breaks one off for 30 like he was shot out of a cannon, next play taps out and the season's over. There, but in the snow. And I mean, if there was ever a team built for the snow, I remember when Josh Allen when I first got my first look at Josh Allen when he played for Wyoming. It's a 3:30 game. It was a blizzard. You couldn't see 4 feet in front of you. The wind is howling, and this guy is throwing bazookas through the snow, through the wind. When he came to the NFL, there were naysayers. Oh, this guy sucks. He has no accuracy. Well, 3 years later, they were eating crow. And again, if you wanted to pick a team right now who's just one half game behind KC, who has their issues, I think if I sent you $100 to pick a team out of the AFC to go to the Super Bowl, Riley, I think you'd put it on the Bills right now.
I think so, and especially, I still have a ton of respect for the Ravens, but they're obviously not playing up to what we've seen earlier in the season, and hopefully for their sake they didn't peak early because they're obviously still getting a lot of love. But 8-5, I mean, I'm not going to say it by any means they're going to be fine, but a couple more slip-ups in a hot, whether it be Indy or Miami team, and we could be scratching our head about them in the playoffs, period. Of course, I'm not saying that. But they're closer to being out of the playoffs than they are to the top of the AFC at this point for the Ravens by record at the very least. So I agree with you. The Bills look at least in the AFC as complete as anybody. I'm putting them with the three big dogs. I mean, four big dogs, I guess. The Chiefs just aren't playing that well. I excluded them for a second as far as who I think the three best teams are. Throw the Chiefs in there. They're still the Chiefs, and they still have Patrick Mahomes. But as far as the eye tests, it's the Lions, the Eagles, and the Bills right now that are playing better than anybody. The Chiefs should have lost whatever it was, 2 of the last 3, 3 of the last 4. They get to pull a rabbit out of their hat, if you even want to call it that, on Friday against the Raiders. Pull a rabbit out of their hat against the Broncos. So, again, they are still the Chiefs. They still have Patrick Mahomes. We were talking poo-pooing them even harder last year, and they end up winning the Super Bowl. So I'm not trying to say that they can't win the Super Bowl. But by the eye test, those three teams are playing better than them right now.
I'm going to go to the Ravens. Guys, everyone that follows us religiously knows my love for fantasy football. Was blessed in 2017 to be the first person to win not one but 2 national championships in 1 year for the NFFC. I'm in a position this year where I actually was on the lid for a couple weeks or close to the lid with one of my many teams this year. Regular season, you compete against 12 teams in the league itself, but there's 4,200 teams overall, 350 leagues. And our best team currently is a Raven stack. It has Lamar Jackson, it has Derrick Henry, and it has Justin Tucker. Okay. We also have Kenneth Walker. We have A-Chain. We have Justin Jefferson that has done shit the last 3 weeks with Jaden Reed, who had a good game. Then we have an opportunity of Jamison Williams, Cedric Tillman, or Josh Downs. Tillman and Downs both concussion protocol. And we have Mr. Rookie Sensation Brock Bowers, who has just been astonishing. But my point is, I had Justin Tucker in diapers. I would literally get up when he's lining up an extra point, a field goal, and I'd go into the bathroom and we used to kiddingly say, why are you making this guy kick it? Just go to a commercial break now. I mean, It wasn't, he never had it was dead smack center. This is guy just don't know. So this year on that stack, we have him. And the thing that sucks for us is next week, Week 14 is the last week of the regular season. And so this is the last week of the waiver wire. Whoever you cut this week, no one can pick up because there's no more waiver wire. So with teams, and there's 6 teams on buys, I have a backup quarterback for Lamar. That's Russell Wilson. Of course, he has the monster week this week. We can use it this coming week, of course. We'll wheel in Walker and A-Chain, and then we'll move, Henry's out for the bye week. We'll put in a wide receiver for the flex. That's not a problem. I can't cut Justin Tucker. Here's why. We picked up Koo. By the way, Koo missed 1 or 2 this week as well. And Justin Tucker, with his 3 misses and his doink on the extra point, still scored almost 10 points. But my point is, what was so beautiful with this team, Riley, is you drive the length of the field. So I pick up 4 or 5 points on Henry. I pick up 3, 4, 5 points on Lamar Jackson. If they stall, in comes Tucker for a 30 or 40 yarder. So I pick up another 3 or 4 points. That's just the way the team was built. And in no world would I ever think about cutting Justin Tucker, just like Harbaugh is right now. We got a week to 10 days, 2 weeks to figure this out. Belichick was talking about it on McAfee show today as well. But every time he is lining up, it's like a root canal. It's almost like he can't get it. What used to be automatic is now right here. Now, maybe he's lost a little in the length because he's not blasting them through the middle. He's not hitting the nets like these other kids nowadays. But it's almost like on the driving range, on the tee box, when you should be hitting a 3-iron and you say to yourself, you know what, I'm going to just grab a 5-iron and I'm going to give it a little extra. And we usually duck hook it or we'll slice it into the woods. Everything about his kicks right now is just, I feel for the guy. I'm sorry for the sermon, but I really feel for that guy right now. And he single-handedly, listen, they were up 9-0. It would have been 10-0. The field goal missed before the half would have been 14-13. They start the second half with another miss, and then he misses again. He single-handedly cost them that game yesterday.
Oh, 100%. I think it was Romo and Nance were on that game yesterday. And again, credit to the Eagles. They played a really good game. Mm-hmm. But they're talking about the Eagles, holding them to 12 points. What a feat. And it's like, well, they should be tied right now. What are we talking about here? And so that was driving me a little nuts here. But no, if you're the Ravens, you're obviously looking around the NFL. The Packers kind of lucked into the best situation of being desperate for a kicker. And it just so happens that Brandon McManus gets at least cleared by the NFL and is on the street now. If you're the Ravens, you don't have that opportunity. From a fantasy perspective, you always have that. I actually, not that same scenario by any means, because Justin Tucker is, take out any circumstances. Obviously, Adam Vinatieri is the most clutch or the most decorated as far as moments. Justin Tucker, by far, is the best kicker that I've ever seen, just on a pound-for-pound kicking basis. Take out any circumstances. You say, I need you to kick a field goal right now. That is the one man in history, at least that is best. Not right now, obviously, that I've taken. But you put it perfectly as far as I don't know if it's in between the ears or if there's some type of injury or what. The only example that I have, maybe there's a couple examples at some point maybe he does come around. Not the same kicker by any means. Mason Crosby was a good kicker, not a great kicker. Had 1 year. He was the Packers kicker from 2007 through 2022, I think it was. So for 5 years, he's kicking, around 80, 85%. 2012, 63%, and is about as atrocious as could be. Worse than what we're seeing from Justin Tucker, and it's clear that something's wrong. Stick with him in the offseason, and he turns back around and goes 89%. I think one of his best years after that. So it's not a death sentence what we're seeing from Justin Tucker. But if you're not anyone that doesn't have any of that much love for Justin Tucker, there's probably I'm sure there's a lot of people pulling the trigger on getting rid of him. But to your point, especially with the stack that you have, it's almost impossible to get rid of him because he's still, like you said, still putting up some points. It's not like he's putting up a goose egg or anything like that. But it's tough. There's and I was saying, I sometimes if I have kicker issues in fantasy, I get to a point where I cut ties with someone. I think I cut ties with Dustin Hopkins from the Browns. Next guy I pick up who is the hottest available name in free agency and in fantasy. And it's almost like I'm giving them the bug. I've been swapping 4 or 5 kickers now to where you jump to the next one, and now they're the ones that have the issue, and your guy that you just got rid of is looking better. So that's always the risk that you run. You get rid of him, and then he turns back into Justin Tucker, and then you're going to be pretty upset at yourself. And then the fact that you have the stack is kind of the deciding factor for you there, I would assume. So it's tough. I don't know how it changes, but other than keep rolling him back out there and hope that he figures something else out. Otherwise, at least for the rest of this year, there's nothing you can do.
No, and we play this week coming up, week 14, and then you take all your points, you divide it by 14, and I think we're averaging we scored 169 this week, so I think we're averaging about 162. You start at 162, and however 500, 600, 700 teams that make it, if I beat you by 500 points, well, instead of you chasing 500 points in 3 weeks, which is physically impossible, it's just your average. So if you averaged 140 and I averaged 162, you're only, even though the regular season I beat you by 400 or 500, you're only 22 points behind. And
Right.
It's a 3-week race for $250,000. And so I'm near the lid on that team. I got another team just right around 100. So I could have 2, 3, maybe 4 swings that bite at the apple for the big prize. The Ravens, week off, travel to the Giants, which again, I hope is not a grab-ass game because then they host Pittsburgh the following week.
Right.
And then on Christmas Day at 4:30, they travel to Houston. And it's kind of funny because we're returning to the scene where in 17 on Christmas Day was the final day of the year for 17. And Pittsburgh played at Houston, and I had a big wide receiver for the Steelers that was hurt. I had his backup who scored late that pushed one of the teams to the promised land. So that'll be interesting there. So I think that's going to be a roll the ball out. First one to 40 wins that game. But a Ravens team, I'll still say offensively, one of, if not the best teams in the land. Defensively played well, but again, the Eagles are one of those teams, if you let them hang around and then Barkley gets lathered up like he did in the second half and in the fourth quarter, a team that can play keep away there, which I'm going to now bring on over to the Lions. The Lions just keep getting injured. In come your Packers this week. I know it's the Lions NFC to lose, but the Eagles are playing great ball right now, number one. Number two, and again, anything can happen in the playoffs. I think your team, especially, you remember what happened last year. You got to have a chip on your shoulder. Your defense is playing good or well. The bend don't break almost. You're getting pressure on the quarterback. It was funny. There was a tweet today. The 3 running backs that left, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, and Saquon Barkley, their teams are like 20 games below 500.
Oh, yeah.
And the teams that are now the Ravens are the worst team, by the way. The Packers and, of course, now the Eagles are like 20 games over 500. So
Right.
the tweet was, running backs do matter, Riley.
Right. It might be more than 20 games because it was the Titans who are 6 games under, Raiders who are 8 games under, and then the Giants who are 8 games under. So it might be
22.
22, yeah. No, so they do, and especially, and someone else said this, because, put those guys back on those teams. Maybe they win another game or two. It especially matters when you get them in a good situation, which is obviously what we're seeing in all three of those situations. Saquon and the Eagles, a match made in heaven. Henry and the Ravens, match made in heaven. And, this Packers offensive line is really built for a good running game for the most part there. So good stuff there. Thursday is a huge game. Chip on the shoulder, yes, and still would have need some work to be done. And you look around, and the Vikings and the Lions have been having close calls, and they just keep eking out these wins. And so I think you gain a little confidence from that. Where if you lose this game, the Lions are going to walk to the division essentially. Maybe the Vikings give them a run for their money, but division chances are out the window. Obviously, if the Packers and you lose this game, just turning your sights on making sure you take care of business and get maybe the fifth seed if you can beat the Vikings, but potentially the sixth seed. But if you win that game, your sights are turned to, hey, we can win the division and maybe get a top 2 seed here. Still would need some help outside of that because the Packers have a couple losses within the division and the Lions haven't had any yet. But nonetheless, you look back at last year. Again, the Lions are, they're not going to sneak up on the Lions like they did last year. Packers were in a rough spot. Not that it was a good spot for that game. They were in a rough spot. I don't remember what their record was, but it wasn't fantastic coming into that game. So they snuck up on them a bit there. So not going to be sneaking up on anybody this time. But at the end of the day, chip on your shoulder, and your defense is definitely feeling like they got to play better. Jordan Love, that was a game where he was probably rushed back with the groin injury, so he's looking a lot better, obviously, and is playing a lot much more higher degree of mistake-free football. So that's the one thing I've been harping on all season long, where even in some of their wins, a lot more sweaty because of the bad choices he was making. So as long as he stays, patient, taking some checkdowns, he's taking a lot more checkdowns, and the Packers will have a chance, and this will be a good one on Thursday, unlike what we saw in Lambeau a few weeks ago.
I'm going to ask you this question. We were breaking news. The Chicago coach getting fired due to it was just an addition by subtraction. It just was not if, it was when. I still think they made some boneheaded moves. There's some, since the new OC came back, Caleb's looked better. They're actually throwing the ball down the field to Keenan Allen and DJ Moore there. Roshan now in concussion protocol. I heard this, and I want to ask you this. Maybe you have a little thought on this. Is, obviously, if I'm the Bears GM, I'm on the phone with Dan Campbell in the line, say, hey, you're going to let Ben talk to us, Ben Johnson, of course, and either they say yes or no. I'm hearing Mr. Kingsbury. Now, he's done amazing work with Jaden Daniels. He wants another bite at this apple. We've seen his work, though. So I'm going to ask you, are you in on that one?
I'm in on them exploring that opportunity and that being a very likely thing that they do. I think you and I are on the same page where we saw we saw what he's done as a head coach, and it was not fantastic. Already starting to see, and I'll bring one of the biggest issues when he was with Arizona, had fantastic start to the season, and some of it was injuries, the wheels falling off. But there's sometimes one or two seasons where they start fantastic and then the wheels just fall off offensively. Obviously, they looked good yesterday, but that's against a struggling Titans team. Wheels are kind of falling off offensively as compared to what they were the first half of the season in Washington this year as well. So until he puts together a full season of good offensive play as a coach, whether it be head coach or coordinator, I'm always going to be a little skeptical about what his ceiling is. So I'll say that I think that might be the guy that they bring in as head coach. I'll even go as far as I think that is what they do. But it would make me a little nervous because I think their offense would have some competency, but as a ceiling is concerned, it wouldn't make me too nervous as a Packers fan, just because I don't really believe in Cliff as a head coach there. But I would imagine they are hell-bent on finding an offensive-minded coach to pair with Caleb Williams. You have to assume that's what they do. I know Bears fans want Mike Vrabel, and as a leader of football players, I think that would be a great option, but obviously wouldn't be the kind of match if you're looking for somebody to match with Caleb Williams that you would have there. So to your point, Ben Johnson is obviously the hot name, but I'll say they get the consolation prize with Cliff. I will go ahead and say that that's what happens.
It's funny because Vrabel is someone that I said the Patriots should have grabbed. And in today's football, you can't have a defensive minded head coach. Well, what the hell is Harbaugh doing right now in the Chargers? So please don't tell me that. And if you're a defensive minded head coach, put in an offensive minded OC and you'll be fine. Trust me. When Belichick was at his best, he was focused on the defensive side as the head coach, but he still had an OC and a DC. So now Drake May's been playing great. Yes, he's the chosen one. He is going to be fine, but they're just finding ways and new ways every week to lose. Anthony Richardson, Mr. Sailor, if you're listening, congrats. That was a great win. And as you said in the morning, almost reminded us of a Peyton Brady 2.0 now with a Richardson versus May to the coming here. I'm going to take it a step further. I feel there's one guy I feel the worst for in the NFL, and that's Joe Burrow right now. This guy is just playing his ass off. And they just keep finding ways to lose. He's broken. He was almost in tears at the press conference by his locker. Joe, I'm going to go out on a limb and tell me if you think I'm crazy on this one. I wouldn't be surprised if they let the head coach go in Cincinnati. And I'll give you the new head coach. Joe Brady, the OC in Buffalo, who worked with Joe at LSU.
Okay. I don't hate it. I've never been a huge Zach Taylor fan. I actually remember doing shows whatever year they went to the Super Bowl, and that was my preseason pick for first coach fired. So obviously had egg on my face because they ended up going to the Super Bowl there. But as an all-around, kind of putting them into the same cat. So I got on my face, obviously. But I've still kind of maintained, and they've obviously had success. They've been a great offense. And to your point, Joe Burrow, just look at 30 touchdowns, 5 picks. If they were a 2-3 loss team, he would be as much in the MVP race, maybe the favorite if they had 2-3 losses right now to win MVP. And I've got him on my Dynasty Fantasy League, a massive Joe Burrow fan. But I've never been a Zach Taylor guy, and we're starting to see that as far as fully comprehensive football coach there. They need some. They've got Trey Hendrickson, an absolute baller on defense. They need a little defensive help, obviously, but at the end of the day, some of the stuff could be fixed there. And I'll go with Joe Brady. When you're talking about offensive coordinators, and you can get a defensive-minded coach, the Bills are kind of proof to you. They've had Brian DeBole gets a head coaching job because of the work he did. They've had a little bit of a revolving door at offensive coordinator, and now you see obviously what they are now. So you can have some growing pains just going back to that conversation with some offensive coordinator shifts, obviously, but you can always find your way back to having a good offensive coordinator. So I like it. You're talking my language. If he was let go this year or at the end of this year, that would be vindication finally caught up to me for my terrible pick from that year. But I'll still chalk it up as a win for myself if that does happen.
And again, if the Giants do let Dable go walking, if I'm the Patriots, I don't let Dable out of the building. I have him there hostage, and he's my OC next year. I think just out of principle, they'll let May flounder for one more year, but have someone on deck again. Vrabel would have been my guy there.
Yeah, I'm a big DeBole guy. Again, to be seen whether or not he's a good head coach or not. But I think he's taken a bad rap obviously the last 2 years, but he elevated Daniel Jones to getting that contract and being a playoff team a couple of years ago here. So I'm a big DeBole guy. So again, maybe he's a better OC than head coach, but he should be a hot commodity if he's let go.
College football, God, when your winning percentage is 80+%, and I have to always bring this up, Harbaugh was 0-9 against Ohio State, and they had nowhere to go. He was rebuilding this program. He was beating everyone else. He just couldn't beat Ohio State. Then he finally cracked the code, get to the Final Four and lose, and then the following year beat him again. And, of course, wins a national championship, drops the mic. Ohio State and Ryan Day, this was the year. 19.5-point favorites. Just a team on Michigan that had like 3 people from the year before. And I've been saying all along, this Ohio State team never wowed me, but they were just professional on
Yeah.
both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. Howard, the quarterback, is no Justin Fields, there's the list of quarterbacks is endless. I kept saying to you and everyone that wants to listen, I don't see a Zeke Elliott back there. I don't see a Marvin Harrison Jr. back there, a Chris Olave. I don't see anything. But after the way they beat Indiana, I dropped the mic. The books had them as the favorite. I says, all right, you guys are right. I give up. They'll be in the Final Four. They'll be in the championship game, and we'll see what happens. Holy shit. And now Ryan Day's only got one life left. He's got to get to the championship game, if not win the championship. Otherwise, he's gone.
I know. I think if he gets there, that gives him some security. You have all that time to lavish in the fact that they've made it again, and you get all the stories of, man, a few weeks ago we were talking about this guy being out. So I think if he gets to the championship, he'll be fine. But I'm with you. I mean, especially now the crazy part, though, is had they gone – and let's say they lose another classic to Oregon, and that's their only 2 losses. They probably don't drop too far in the rankings, and they probably get a pretty damn good home matchup in the first round. Probably still getting a home matchup, we'll see how the chips fall. Maybe it'll still work out to where they play in Indiana or an SMU or something like that. But there's a good chance that they're playing one of these SEC teams in Ohio State for this first home game for what they're going to have here. So. I'm with you. I think they're very good. You said it perfectly. They're very, very well-rounded. Really, the one guy, typically they would have a guy like whatever last week we talked about it, Olave, Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Caleb Downs is that guy that's jumping off the screen at people, and the name that's jumping off, and he's on the defensive side of the ball. So offensively, when you get into these situations where you're struggling with an opponent, they don't have that. Again, they're very good. They're very good. They just don't have that one guy that you can turn to, or 2 guys in some cases that can flip the switch and take over a game. So if they're in these close games, they're not going to be like we've seen them in the past, run away with it. And yeah, if you're especially losing to this Michigan team, and I assume Michigan was more motivated and wanted more. Ohio State knew they were in the playoffs, this and that. But if you can't get your guys up for that game, especially after you've lost 3 in a row the last 3 years, that's a bad indictment on them. So I'm with you. I think even getting to, because let's say they host Indiana or SMU, and they easy win in the first round. Then the next round they play the ACC or the Big 10 or the Big 12 rep in the round of 8, and they go through them. And then they meet an SEC big boy or Oregon or Texas. Well, Texas is SEC, but you know what I mean. One of the big boys in the semifinal, and they get beaten that game. I think that would be it for Ryan Day. So I'm with you. I think if he gets there to the championship, it saves his job, unless they get absolutely destroyed in the championship. But let's say they get there and they lose a close one or lose a respectable game, then I'll say he comes back. But it's going to be an uphill battle. It's going to be an uphill battle. And if players like him and they want to play for him, then maybe that's what gets it done. But at the end of the day, his seat is as hot as anybody right now going into the college football playoff.
We had Terry Smith on this morning after Bill Krakenberger, and Utah 8 overtimes against Georgia Tech, and they were down 14 in the 4th, and Georgia Tech just couldn't put them away. Now this is a Georgia team who already had 2 losses. Now gets a layup, and it's kind of comical when I say this, gets a layup meaning they got a rematch against Texas. Even if they lose, they'll have 3 losses, but they'll be the 3-loss SEC team. Unlike Ole Miss and Alabama with 3 losses outside looking in, Georgia, win, lose, or draw, it doesn't matter. They're still in the dance.
Right. And I was going to add to the 3-loss team, South Carolina wins a huge game against Clemson, but Clemson is the team that has a chance to get into the playoff this weekend is the crazy part of that one there. So South Carolina, good season, but just one game away, one win away from one of the losses they had from being on the inside there. So you feel for them. Miami absolutely blows their chances of winning the ACC, obviously, against Syracuse. That one's a tough one there. So, it's going to be interesting. You would need some true chaos to have anything really shooken up here. The one thing that's interesting is now Boise State, and it helped that Tulane loses to Memphis, actually, for UNLV. Had Tulane won that game, and Tulane goes on to win the American Conference, and UNLV upset Boise, it would be a little bit of a closer toss-up, and you might lean towards Tulane getting that group of 5 spot. But now that Tulane loses that game You essentially have a playoff game between Boise State and UNLV. UNLV being having a legit chance to steal that spot that we've been, crowning Boise State as this entire season.
1,000%. And getting back to the Big Ten with that Ohio State loss, in comes Penn State now, which is a shocker. If you had that on your bingo card, God bless you, making it to the Big Ten championship game against Oregon. Any chance of an upset there, Riley?
I was going to ask you, are you surprised? It's a 3.5 line as we sit here today. Were you surprised that excuse me, are you surprised that it is as close as it is there on 3.5 on a neutral site?
I think Oregon has lost some of its luster. They've been in this game for a long time now, and Dylan Gabriel and that flash of the quack attack has slowed down because, again, they haven't had anything to play for in a couple weeks. And I think Penn State's in a great spot there. I really do.
Oh, yeah. And Penn State's not going to drop too far. I guess, and I talked about this with Notre Dame, and I don't know that it would happen this year, but in a future year where Notre Dame is far and away the best team in the country, they can't be one of those top 4 seeds. They get the 5 seed. Play whatever it is, whether it's the Group of 5 champ, the Big 12 champ, the ACC champ, in the 5-12 game at home. Turn around, play the lesser of the 4th-ranked team, which is, again, one of those 3 teams, and have almost a walking path to the semifinal before you really got to gear up. Oregon might actually fall to that number 5 spot if they were to lose this game, and I'm not saying they'd be trying to lose and not win the Big Ten championship, but is there any part of this that they're just not as motivated to win because the alternative really isn't that bad of an alternative there?
A lot of people I talked to in our lanes the last couple weeks clearly stated whoever gets the 5 hole in this tournament is the team to look out for, the easiest path to the Final Four. And I was going to ask you another crazy question. Notre Dame back in the day, they had their own network. They were Notre Dame. They carried the walking stick. They could do whatever they want. With this format here, they lost week 2 to Northern Illinois. Every week after was a playoff game. If they would have lost to USC, okay, there was people talking about 2 losses, 1 to USC, 1 to Northern Illinois. You're out. They were fortunate enough, and anyone that had the 7 and the hook, I feel for you.
Yeah.
Because, that 2 pick 6 back to the house.
It was a good game, and they obviously the scoreboard does not reflect that, yeah.
Oh, and speaking of that, our 4-0 sweep was stopped at the 1-yard line. We had the Aggies plus 5.5 against Texas. Yeah. First and goal from the 3, second and goal from the 2, third and goal from the 1. Thanks for playing. But my question is, at some point, if they're going to stick to this, doesn't the NCAA have to say to Notre Dame, hey, pick a conference or get the hell out of Dodge here?
I mean, maybe. I think it would, if they had a run where they kept being the number 5 team, kept using it to their advantage, and constantly were in the semifinals because they're just beating the crap out of, the 2, probably the 2 lowest ranked teams in the playoff. Where obviously the 12 seed would be, and in a lot of cases that number 4 team would be the second worst team in the playoff. Maybe not in every case, but you know what I mean. Where this year, it's going to be either Arizona State or Iowa State, or maybe it's Boise State, who again no slouches, but you know what I mean. So. I don't know. At some point, I would say yes, but as long as Notre Dame's got the power to say they'll take all their TV rights themselves and be in this position right here, I think they'll go ahead and do so. And I mean, they're very much in play. They could be that 5 or 6 seed this year, because even the 6 seed this year, isn't going to have a bad path either. The 11 seed, maybe the 11 seed ends up being a really tough 2-3 loss team, but you know what I mean, where they get the 11 seed and they turn around and get the probably the ACC champ there. In a neutral site. So 6 seed ain't too bad either this year.
And lastly, 2 years ago when UConn Huskies lost in the semis of the Big East Conference, I was happy because we got a couple extra days off to regroup. So this just came to my head. There's the conference championship games this week. So everyone who's already in or sweating to get in, they're playing one less game than these conference final teams. So I'm going to ask you the craziest question, because I don't know right now, because we don't have the brackets in front of us. We only could speculate. I'm going to call me crazy here. Does that loss by Ohio State not now having to play Oregon in the rematch, does that actually help them?
As long as they, depending on who they play in the first round, I'm going to say yes. And it depends who they play because they might end up. I'm trying to read through the options here because let's say Oregon wins the Big Ten championship, they're number 1. Texas wins against Georgia, they're number 2. Then you've got the 3, 4, and 12 are the ACC, Big 12, whatever, yada yada. 5, who would 5 be? Would it be Notre Dame? Potential, probably not Penn State losing to get to 2 losses. They'd probably fall behind Notre Dame. Georgia would have lost to Texas in that scenario.
It's either going to be Notre Dame or Ohio State.
Right. And so if if Ohio State is the 5 seed, then it absolutely helps them. Even if they're the 6 seed and they don't have to play maybe it ends up being one of those SEC teams that squeaks in somehow. I don't know. It could very well help them. It absolutely could very well help them. It really depends on who they play in that first game. And chances are it's going to be favorable, and then they'll go in a neutral site and play, Boise State or Arizona State, Iowa State, one of those teams, and walk to the semifinal, and then finally have to maybe then they play Oregon or Texas at that point.
Because thinking outside the box with your conference champions and the rankings right now, I don't see anyone. The only one that would actually, because Ohio State and Notre Dame are not playing right now.
Correct.
Okay. Georgia, who should have lost again on Saturday, if they upset Texas, they're as a conference championship. Texas goes from the top down, so Texas might say there's not many teams that can slide in front of Notre Dame on a bye week.
Right.
If Oregon lost, maybe it's Oregon, right? Oregon would slide right in front of Notre Dame. If Texas lost, they would slide right in front of Notre Dame. But other than that, the ACC or the Big 12 is not going to slide in front of. You see what I'm saying? So I think Notre Dame is right there. Unless Texas or Oregon lose, I think it's Notre Dame right there.
I think so. No, I think you're right. Unless either of those things happen, I think you're absolutely right because Tennessee wouldn't jump over. Tennessee could be above. Tennessee, at least for I know the AP doesn't matter when we're talking about college football, but Tennessee might be ahead of Ohio State. So if we're talking about Ohio State, it's not them. But I think, like you said, unless Oregon or Texas loses, I think that 5 spot is Notre Dame's.
I agree. NHL tonight, 3 games on the docket. New Jersey against the Rangers. I'll just tell you this, guys. The Rangers, like the Bruins, they're a team. They're lost right now. If you like the Devils tonight, you can get their team total over 3.5 plus 115. I will tell you the numbers are telling me it's a Rangers game. So I'm not going to the window to bet the Rangers, but if you wanted the Rangers plus 115, 117, God bless you there. If you want the cherry on top, their team total over 3.5, you can get it plus 140. Riley, Chicago Blackhawks, team total over 1.5, minus 180 or 170. So I'm not telling you to run the window to get to 2. I would get cute. I would get cute and say under 1.5 plus 160 is the play to go there. Toronto 3.5 over 155. So again, this is a 4-1, 4-2 game all day. Dallas and Utah. If you like Dallas today, team total over 3.5 plus 120. I will just say this out loud. Cleveland and Denver. I've seen all the worlds on Denver. Bo Nix is the greatest thing since C.J. Stroud last year. Sean Payton, they're doing wonders. I can tell you the sharp money's coming in on the Brownies. If you like the Browns, team total over 17.5 plus 115. If your shop has 6.5, I'd buy the hook to 7. I was talking to Bill today about buying hooks and getting them to 7 or 7.5 there. Thoughts on Denver, Cleveland tonight?
Yeah, it's a tough one for me because we've seen so many different versions of this Browns team, and I'm not trying to take what we saw last. They are extra rested. They played last Thursday and get the win there. So the last thing we've seen from them is them winning in that game. But obviously, I don't think the average person is leaning back on them winning that game. I think they probably assume that the Browns will revolt back into being the Brownies, the same old Browns and whatnot. And they got kind of manhandled in the second half of the 2 games before that, but they're not really that far out of these games that they're losing. Since Deshaun Watson has gone out, at least, and even in those games, obviously offense disastrously ugly. But at the end of the day, Jameis Winston's moving the ball, finding some rapport with these receivers. So I do think it's going to be a better game, a halfway decent game here. Just depends, maybe we get some a couple bad Jameis throws and some Broncos defensive points is probably what would have to happen for the Broncos to cover this one convincingly. So I'm a little torn in this one. I am thinking the Browns could give them a run for their money, but I also am a little nervous that we might have a tie game, a 3-point game, and then a couple back-to-back pick sixes or fumble sixes or anything like that is my concern, I guess.
Well, I first and foremost, on the Cleveland side, no Cedric Tillman, who was doing great, of course, since the Cooper trade here. So we got to start. We got to play it, Riley. The Jerry Jeudy revenge game, coming back to Denver, and first score and anytime touchdown.
Jerry Jeudy, first score 12-1, anytime 2-1.
Okay. And then on the Denver side, I'm going to get cute. I'm going to play 2 here. I'm going to go with, of course, a wide receiver that's playing great, and that's the count, Cortland Sutton.
Yes, playing great. 750 first time, 165 anytime. Only one with better odds is Javonte Williams in the game.
Okay, and then I'm going to get cute here. Anytime touchdown by the Denver D.
Denver D actually more. Oh no, they just had it itemized wrong. Sorry. I was gonna say it looks like the Browns defense is more likely to score, but they just had the itemization a little off on that one. 390 anytime for the Broncos defense. 22-1 for the first time. They do have it more likely that the Browns defense would score first at 20-1, but 450 on the anytime. So a little goofy there, but. No, I think either of these defenses to score isn't a bad play. I might go a little sprinkle on 20-1, 22-1 on both first defenses to score.
Let me see here.
I'll throw in David Njoku, who's been more and more involved. I like his odds still not quite reflecting what we've seen from him. Probably going to start throwing them the ball if they get around the goal line. A little more here, although they do have Nick Chubb back. But I'll go 275 for Njoku, 15-1 on the first time. And I'll go Audric Estime. Maybe not first time because he probably won't be in there the first few drives, first couple drives, I should say. But I'll go anytime for Audric Estime, 360.
There are a handful of college games and extra games. I think I might have finally cracked Da Vinci's Code. I'll get more into that as the week progresses here. We 4-0 our last college hoop team totals that were unders, and now that we just cracked 2 small schools yesterday on the over, I do have one today on an over play, a real bad school that we got tiptoeing over there as well. But we'll get more into college hoops. Again, I don't have to rehash. Dan Hurley made it clear I will not be doing any 2- and 3-day tournaments anymore. I learned my lesson. This team's going to need a lot of patience and grace. He's got some tough games coming up, I think, with Baylor, Gonzaga, and someone else coming. So there's a lot of payback there as they'll probably limp to the Big East, who, again, Marquette is a team to look out for. There's a couple other teams playing very well in the Big East as well. So, closing thoughts, sir?
Closing thoughts, don't have too much as far as the NBA tonight, my friend. 4 games, couple 7.5s, couple 8.5s. So no barn burners that you need to, drop the remote for necessarily, at least on paper. Could end up being okay, but probably some injuries that would otherwise make these games pretty good. Not as good. No Jimmy Butler in that Celtics and Heat game. The Celtics are a little banged up as well, at least. Not super banged up, obviously, but some guys questionable in that one. Lakers and Wolves, 7.5. Lakers a little banged up as well day to day for some of these guys, but Anthony Davis I think is probable. But Wolves at home 7.5. So kind of seems like maybe we might find out that somebody's not playing in that game for the Lakers. If you had to ask me on that one, with the 9-10 Wolves team there, finally get the win a couple days ago, but a little ugly stretch for them. My Bulls hosting the Nets. as 7.5-point favorites. Would maybe be more interested in the Bulls' offense scoring them some points. I don't know that the Bulls are that big a favorite over anybody, but maybe you got some injuries that'll pop up for the Nets there. But allowing an absurd amount of points per game on the defensive end. So I'm not if I'm doing anything, the Bulls' offense has been okay. Just can't outscore the other team half the time. So not going to go run to the window. The Bulls 7.5 might be looking at their team total tonight. We'll see.
From me, closing thoughts. It's the start of December. It's a tough month. ECSI VIPs, thank you so much. I've had a handful of people already reach out and take care of their invoices for the year 2025. As we get closer to our 10-year anniversary, which we are super stoked about. I was talking to a few colleagues on the crazy Friday that I had. 5:30 a.m. Good friend and colleague, Mr. Bernie Fratto, invited me on to talk Bill Belichick on Fox Sports Radio. 10 a.m., of course, with Andrew McGinnis at Wager Talk. 11 a.m., we had the NCAA Insiders and Adam Trigger. And then at 1 o'clock, I was on with Joe Madden and George Kurtz at Sports Grid for 2 segments there. And they said, we did so well. Come on back at 4 o'clock. And I was with, who was I with? I was with Scott Wetzel and Joe Ranieri at 4 for 2 segments there. And then they's like, why don't you come back at 7:30 with Brady? I was like, guys, and Dave Martinez, I'm out of gas. I'm done. I said, I can't do it anymore. So anyways, if you want to be a part of something special in 2025, we'd love to have you on board here with the ECSI VIPs. A couple options, very simply, to come on board. $3 a day, $99 a month. It's your gym membership. If you want to get in through the Super Bowl or through March Madness, jump on board. Go to eastcoastsportsinvestors.com. Plans and pricing, you'll see a $375 a month retail price. Just sign up for 1 month. We'll take care of it. We'll take you right through March Madness. Maybe we'll even throw in the Masters and maybe the return of Scotty Scheffler, who we gave out pre-flop 2 units. We cashed 10-1 with the 2 units there. We were 4-0 in majors, so got a lot of stuff brewing here. So Russell, doing nothing but drinking coffee here, so you know what the plug is coming up here. Potential coffee sponsor here, which I tell you what, would get more plugs than anything around here, because that's all I do is I drink coffee, John Wayne style. So the darker the better for me. Cream, sugar, that's not coffee. I want coffee. I want real coffee. So everyone, thank you so much. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., Andrew McGinnis is back, of course, from Wager Talk, from McGinnis Picks to talk NHL. I don't have Riley's schedule yet, so I don't know when. Tuesday, are we on tomorrow?
Tuesdays are an issue right now. I Monday, Wednesday, Friday is kind of where I'm at right now, I guess.
There we go. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I think the UFC is back this Thursday afternoon with Lou Finocchiaro. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, grab some closing bells. So for myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Investor, one and only Riley Magnuson at Riley_Magnuson, the one. We wish everyone a blessed day. Any questions, comments, concerns? Jump on over to Twitter at EC Sports Invest. Send me a DM. Hey, Jeff, I'm interested. What can I do? So other than that, if you want to send us an email, eastcoastsportsinvestors@gmail.com. Until then, I'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early at 10 a.m. Take care.